transformation. And so it's trying to explain this, what Francisco Gutierrez and his colleagues who wrote the Colombian case studies up, what they describe as a metropolitan miracle. Why did this come about? And they argued that it was the political coalitions that were forged in both Bogota and Medellin at critical junctures. So against a backdrop of soaring levels of urban violence, the appointment of these particular mayors, a new style of politics brought in by the new constitution that fostered political participation and debate, channels for constructive engagement, cooperation on the part of the middle classes who voluntarily paid an additional urban tax to pay for this, in the hope that urban homicide rates would come down, violence would stop, and it did. And so consequently a relatively diverse combination of urban interest groups who traditionally pitted their interests against one another and continued to do so in other cities like Cali, which hasn't seen a reduction in homicide rates. Here they came together. Scott Bollins notes that a key condition is the extent to which a wide range of urban dwellers have access to policy making in the political process. And what you saw in the case of Bogota and Medellin was that cross-class alliance and the institutionalized vehicles for that to happen. I argue, and I won't go into the details of the Durban case, but I argue in the case of Durban that a particular contingent moment that linkages horizontally and vertically between different actors with access to what became state power through the ANC turned what was a nascent civil war into an urban transition that was inclusive, and that led to an inclusive developmental coalition. However, coalitions, political coalitions, are not set in stone, they're malleable, and people who are left out of those coalitions will mobilize and organize in other kinds of coalitions, so you don't stay still. So the importance of the urban middle class is a key lesson from our work, and still a bit under debate, but we're getting there in our conclusions. Very neglected area, and I think what we're going to probably do is take on as a problem the notion of urban elites, which I've been using all the way through, as a too much of an all-inclusive and undifferentiated group. To recognize that what in old days we would have called the petty bourgeoisie, but the sort of lower urban middle class, the aspirational groups, are absolutely critical in trying to forge these constructive engagements. And in terms of going back to national level policy and international intervention, to recognize that post-conflict reconstruction is, it's never post. There's always a potential for civic conflict to emerge. It's a very dangerous space. It's one that you can't only, it's a territory you can't only engage in at a national level, but you have to engage the cities. Otherwise, civic conflict is almost inevitable. And another policy conclusion coming out of all this is that decentralization is about the worst possible policy you could ever force on a post-conflict context, particularly in the Civil War, where there's competition for, interstate competition for contested territory, because it just plays into those conflicts. So that's kind of a scattergun selection from the conclusions of this very long and still a bit unwieldy paper. Food for thought.